with his attorneys, and the prosecutors are present. And we are outside the presence of the jury. When I ruled on the admissibility of exhibit P-TR-1274, not 1274, 2074. I neglected to mention the video, the crime scene video. Ms. Spengler relied on it earlier today, and I still find that it's admissible under Rule 403, even considering the video. I forgot to mention it, but I did consider it. I don't think that the video shows the same thing, and I don't think the video renders the picture part of a necessary presentation of cumulative evidence. So I still find that it's admissible under that, including the video. All right, let's bring the jury in, please. Please be seated, everyone. The record should reflect the jury's back in the courtroom. Mr. Edson, you may call your next witness.
Christine Cavalaci.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Could I have you raise your right hand for me so that I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm on the penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name for the record and spell your first, middle, and last names?
Christine Kelly Calaveshi, Christine Kelly Kalaveshi.
Mr. Edson, you may proceed.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you employed?
I am the custodian of records for Microsoft Corporation.
Are you familiar with a service called Hotmail?
Yes, that is the email service that Microsoft has.
Are you also a custodian of records for Hotmail records?
Yes.
Does that include emails?
Yes.
Does that include attachments to emails as well?
Yes.
Any other information?
Anything that goes along with the email.
How long have you been a custodian of records for Microsoft, specifically Hotmail?
Just over a year.
Have you previously testified related to records associated with Hotmail?
Yes.
In other courts, I'm presuming.
Yes.
At some point since July 2012, had you received, or Microsoft, Hotmail, received information requested from law enforcement related to a specific Hotmail email address of the dsherlockb@hotmail.com?
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, did Microsoft respond with such records pursuant to request by law enforcement?
Yes.
At some point, have you, as a custodian of records, had an opportunity to view a DVD with the Hotmail records associated with that particular Hotmail email account?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness, please?
You may.
I've handed you what's been previously marked as People's Exhibit 347. Do you recognize that exhibit?
Yes.
What is that exhibit?
It is a disk containing the Hotmail records for dsherlockb@hotmail.com.
Did you review those records yourself?
Yes, I did.
Are those records fair and accurate copies of the emails and any attachments associated with that particular Hotmail address?
Yes.
How do you know that?
I reviewed them, and they are consistent with records that are produced by Microsoft.
Do you see any markings on that particular exhibit that you are familiar with?
Yes, it contains the internal case number for these records, along with my initials and the date that I reviewed them.
Just for the record purposes, the long list of letters and numbers that begins with GCC, what does that refer to?
That is the internal case number for Microsoft.
When did you review this particular exhibit?
May 29th, 2015.
Can you tell the jury, please, how you reviewed this particular exhibit?
I went ahead and basically looked at the documents that are contained on the disk, verified that they were consistent with our normal business records, and confirmed that they were for the account at question.
Tell us how you verify.
Essentially going through and looking at the documents. They're contained in a web format, and essentially making sure that everything worked, everything was corresponding to what we are normally producing for these kinds of records.
Did you return that disk back to the prosecution after reviewing it?
Yes, I did.
Those records, are they made at or near the time of the occurrence of the matter set forth in the records?
Yes.
The records themselves, are they kept in the regular conducted business activity for Microsoft, but specifically Hotmail?
Yes.
Are they also made regularly in the practice and conducted practice of business for Hotmail?
Yes.
What exactly is contained on that exhibit?
Essentially, it's only email records, from what I remember.
And how do those email records show up on that exhibit?
It's kind of hard to explain, but it's a series of folders, and those folders correspond to a web link within the disk. You click on the web link, it's a simple URL, takes you to a website which contains the records that enables you to navigate through them.
Do the records contain actual email correspondence?
Yes.
Does it contain correspondence from what appears to be a user and companies as well?
Yes.
The email records, do they also contain information as to a date and time of when those emails were sent and received?
Yes.
All of that's contained in that same exhibit?
Yes.
Did you also go through and verify all that information, not just the emails, but also the information concerning the date and time information associated with those emails?
Yes.
And is all that information contained within that exhibit?
Yes.
The entries made within that particular exhibit, were they made and transmitted within a reasonable time after the emails were sent and received?
Yes.
And the input procedures used to create those emails, as well as the input procedures that you used to review and verify the emails, were they accurate?
Yes.
And does Microsoft, specifically Hotmail, ordinarily keep copies of emails and date, time information associated with the email records?
Yes.
Your Honor, can I have one moment, please?
Yes.
Did you actually confirm that the records contained in People's Exhibit 347 relate to the dsherlockb@hotmail.com account?
Yes,
How did you do that?
by visually comparing, looking at the emails that were contained on the disk, verifying that against, excuse me, the email address that we had on file pertaining to the legal process for those records.
Okay. And did that match?
Yes,
Also, you described the records in general, and you described that there are some URL links, and you can click on a URL link. Did you confirm all of that information as well?
yes,
Is that information, even when you click on the information contained within the records, is that still put forth in People's Exhibit 347?
yes,
All contained within there as well?
yes.
Can I have one more moment, please?
Yes.
Sorry, last question. Within those records themselves, 347, when you go to the URL and you click on the website, I guess, or that URL link, does it actually take you internally within the records themselves to what that links to?
It takes you to initially a title page, and then there are additional URL links on the left, and by clicking into those, you can go to the email records themselves.
Okay, and all that information is contained within 347?
Yes.
All right. Judge, I have no further questions at this time. Judge, we are not offering 347 for admission at this time.
Okay. Is there any cross-examination?
There's no cross-examination, Your Honor.
All right, and there do not appear to be any questions from the jury. May this witness be released from our subpoena.
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection?
Let's have a moment.
Yes.
No objection.
All right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Judge, I'm sorry, before this witness leaves, we would request that she remain under subpoena just in the off chance we need her testimony further.
All right.
She's not crossed the bar yet, Judge. I think she's still in the well of the courtroom.
You did not walk fast enough. You may be called again. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, court, call your next witness, please.
John Timmerman, please. Judge, do you mind if I step out to retrieve the witness?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Judge, we're going to call Carla Rodriguez next.
Good morning.
Morning.
Mr. Reynolds, do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Seated. You can hand me that exhibit there. Mr. Edson, do you want to retrieve this? You probably should not put it there because he hasn't been admitted. Thank you. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first, middle, and last names?
Carla May Rodriguez, CarlaMay Rodriguez.
All right, Mr. Edson, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. What do you do for a living?
I'm a retail management.
I'm going to draw your attention to May 22nd, 2012. How were you employed back on that time period?
I was a store manager for the Gander Mountain in Aurora,
Where roughly is that Gander Mountain store in Aurora?
Abilene, and Iliff.
What were your job responsibilities as a store manager?
Anything that had to do with the operations, from staffing and hiring to all the operational procedures with day-to-day business, including sales of firearms.
Are you familiar with a form called ATF Form 4473?
Yes, sir.
You tell the jury, what is ATF Form 4473?
That's a form that anybody who wishes to purchase a firearm must complete on their own with no direction from anyone else.
Are you familiar with the Colorado Bureau of Investigations as it relates to firearm sales?
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury about how that works specifically as a store manager for Gander Mountain.
So once that form is completed by the applicant who wishes to purchase a firearm, then we enter it into the CBI system, and we wait for them to come back with either an approval, which is a proceed, it could be a denial, it could be a hold.
As a store manager for Gander Mountain, are you familiar with documents associated with customer sales of firearms and other merchandise at Gander Mountain?
Yes, sir.
Do you oftentimes review that as a store manager, some of those documents?
Yes, I did, as a store manager. It was part of my responsibility to view a certain number of them every month.
Are you also familiar, at least back during that time period, with the surveillance video system for Gander Mountain?
Yes, sir.
As a store manager, was it part of your responsibility to review store surveillance and otherwise provide store surveillance when requested to do so by someone like law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
Is there a, lack of a better term, a check system when it relates to sale of firearms and other merchandise, but specifically firearms at Gander Mountain when there's more than one employee involved?
There will always be more than one employee involved on a gun sale. The initial paperwork is filled out, and then when it's matched with the report that comes back from CBI, there always has to be a second set that verifies that everything's accurate and true, matching against the applicant's driver's license and so forth. And that gets signed off by two people.
Do you review those signatures as well as store manager?
Randomly, not on every sale.
Okay. And do you have knowledge of the various employees that were working that particular Gander Mountain store back in May of 2012?
I knew ones who were working, if that's what you're asking.
That's
yes.
my question, yes. Your Honor, may I approach the witness, please?
You may.
I have before you a rather large exhibit with a lot of different documents, but what I'd like you to do is focus in on the documents associated with People's Exhibit 352. There should be 4 documents there. Can you take a look at those 4 documents for me, please?
Okay,
Do you recognize those documents?
I do.
What are those documents?
One's the 4473 that's filled out to purchase the firearm. One is the CBI, or Colorado Bureau of Investigations form that comes back. One's the firearm sale form that's for Gander Mountain's records showing that it was transferred to that gun purchaser. And one's a firearm protection plan that Gander Mountain offers to the customer.
Are you familiar with those documents?
Yes, sir.
How are you familiar with those documents?
Because that was part of our process for a firearm sale, was to fill out all those documents and/or utilize the documents as needed.
Is there a particular date associated with that transaction, the transactions associated with those documents?
Yes, it says 5/22/2012.
Are you familiar with an individual by the name of Sean Brownlee?
Yes,
Who was that?
he was the employee at the time.
Did he work for you?
Yes, sir.
The first document contained within People's Exhibit 352, what is that document in general?
The 4473 that initiates the background check for purchase of a firearm.
Does that appear to be an original ATF Form 4473?
Yes,
How do you know that?
because it's handwritten in blue pen and it's obviously not copied.
Does it appear to be altered in any sort of way?
Not that I can see, no.
The second document contained within People's Exhibit 352, what exactly is that document?
That's the criminal background check done by CBI. That's the response that comes back from them that tells us whether it's approved or denied.
Does that appear to be an original copy?
Yes, sir.
Does there appear to be any sort of alterations associated with that document?
No.
Does the CBI Insta-Check that you're referring to, does it relate to the same transaction from ATF Form 4473?
Yes, it does.
How do you know that?
From the name, from the date, the transaction number, and the NICS number.
What is the NICS number? What are you talking about?
It's part of the national part that comes back that CBI works with that gives the final approval or denial.
And for the record, that's NICS, is that correct?
Correct.
Do the transaction numbers match exactly?
Yes, sir.
The third document within People's Exhibit 352, what is that document?
That's Gander Mountain's firearm sales document. That's our way of notating that the firearm was then turned over to the person who purchased it, so it's no longer owned by Gander Mountain.
Does that document, the firearm sales document, does that associate with the same Form 4473 and the CBI Insta-Check?
Yes, sir.
Is that from the same transaction?
Yes, sir.
How do you know that?
I know that from the description of the firearm, from the serial number, which is specific to every firearm. Also from, it lists the 4473 number on it, which is also listed on the 4473.
So do all those numbers match between those documents?
Yes. Yes.
Finally, the fourth document in People's Exhibit 352, what is that document?
It's a firearm protection plan. It's something that we offer the customers when they purchase a firearm that gives them additional service should they decide to utilize that.
Does that particular document correspond with the same transaction that you've described from Form 4473 and the other documents?
It would match by the date and the names, yes.
And do they match?
Yes, sir.
Is there a particular name associated with all 4 of these documents?
Yes.
What is that name?
James Holmes?
Is there a particular date associated with these documents?
Yes.
What is that date?
5/22/2012.
Did these documents come from your store back when you worked there in Aurora, the Gander Mountain store?
Yes, sir.
For the last document there, the firearm protection plan, does that appear to be an original document?
Yes, sir.
Appear to be any sort of alterations to that document?
No.
Judge, I would move for admission at this time of People's Exhibit 352.
Is there any objection?
Yes, Your Honor, I have a foundational objection, and we object under 802.
All right, would counsel please approach? All right, the Rule 802 objection is sustained.
Referring to People's Exhibit 352, do all those records, are they all part of the regular and ordinary course of business for Gander Mountain?
Yes,
Those who participate in making those particular records, all four of those documents under People's Exhibit 352, are they acting in the normal and ordinary course of Gander Mountain business when they're making those records?
yes,
Does that include the sales associate who fills out any particular forms?
yes,
The information that may be provided by a customer related to all of those forms, is that information maintained, relied upon, and received by Gander Mountain?
yes,
And is all of that done so in the ordinary course of business for Gander Mountain?
yes,
The input procedures that are used to create the items within all four of those documents, People's Exhibit 352, are they accurate?
yes,
The information that is placed upon, for example, ATF Form 4473, the information related to the location of Gander Mountain and such, is all that information accurate?
yes,
The information that's contained in the various parts of ATF Form 4473, such as the serial number and such, is all that information relied upon in Gander Mountain's regular course of business?
yes,
The entries that are made within those particular forms, all four of those forms for People's Exhibit 352, is that done within a reasonable time period related to the sale of the firearm?
yes.
Explain, please.
So you have to start with the 4473, that gets completed, it's reviewed for accuracy, then it's inputted into the CBI system. We're up against CBI's approval, sometimes that can be 10 minutes, sometimes that can be 6 hours. When that returns, then we complete the sale of the firearm, and you have the CBI form, the firearm sale form is signed for at that point in time, and the firearm protection plan, and then it's paid for.
Now, the document from CBI, that's the second document contained within People's Exhibit 352, is that a document that you receive from CBI?
Yes, sir, we have to print it from their computer screen.
That particular document, do you maintain and rely upon the information from CBI in that document to proceed in the regular and ordinary course of business for Gander Mountain as far as firearm sales?
Absolutely.
And all four of those documents, are they kept and maintained in the ordinary and regular course of business for Gander Mountain?
Yes, sir.
I again move for admission, Your Honor.
Ms. Hayes?
Your Honor, we just persist in our objection.
All right, the objection as to hearsay is sustained.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes. The objection under Rule 802 is sustained. Mr. Edson, how would you like to proceed?
Judge, may I approach the witness, please?
You may.
Ma'am, I've handed you what's been previously marked as People's Exhibit 532. Do you recognize that?
Yes,
What is that?
sir, surveillance video from the store?
Do you see your initials associated with that surveillance video?
Yes, sir.
When did you view that surveillance video?
6/12 of 15?
When is that surveillance video associated with as far as transaction date?
5/22 of 12.
Does that video fairly and accurately depict the surveillance video from Gander Mountain?
Yes.
Judge, can I have one moment, please?
Yes.
People's Exhibit 532, did you actually pull surveillance video associated with the transaction from May 22nd, 2012?
Did I pull it?
Yes.
I don't recall.
Okay. Did you review that particular transaction?
Yes.
Okay. Did you have information associated with a particular transaction requested by law enforcement for video surveillance of May 22nd, 2012?
I don't know how to answer your question.
Okay. I'll withdraw that question. Judge, one additional moment, please.
Yes.
Judge, my apologies. We're looking for, to publish a photo that's already been introduced into evidence. We want to make sure that it's already been introduced.
Okay, thank you.
Your Honor, while we wait for that, may we approach?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Edson, do you want to proceed?
Please, if we could please have People's Exhibit 4506, it's a photograph already admitted. We could zoom in as best we could at the top of this photograph. We could scroll down just a little bit. Ma'am, do you see that in front of you?
Yes.
Do you know what that is a photograph of?
Excuse me?
Do you know what that is a photograph of?
Yes.
What is that?
A receipt from the store,
From what store?
the Gander Mountain on Jewel Avenue where I worked,
What store number is that store?
420.
Is there a date associated with that receipt?
Yes, 5/22/12,
And a time?
4:34 p.m.
That trans number, is that a transaction number?
Yes, sir.
Is that a unique transaction number?
Yes.
If we could scroll down a bit more, please. Right there. You are or were at that time a store manager of that Gander Mountain, is that correct?
Yes.
What was purchased pursuant to this receipt?
Glock 22.
Was there a serial number associated with that?
Your Honor, objection, motion to strike. That calls for hearsay. That is not what's indicated on this. Oh, actually, I'm going to withdraw that now, reading the top of it. Sorry.
All right, the objection is withdrawn.
And I'm also prepared to answer the court's question when the court is ready with regard to the recent bench conference.
All right, well, if at any point you believe you should object based on the discussion, then object, and we'll take it up at that time, okay?
What is the serial number associated with that particular firearm?
It's SWS 224,
What was the grand total of that transaction?
$647.99.
We could scroll down a bit more, please. Actually, go back up one more. Thank you. Are you familiar with what the method of payment would have been for that transaction?
Yes.
What is that?
A MasterCard.
When it says account, there's 4 numbers. You know what those numbers associate with?
Typically, it's the last 4 digits of the card.
Okay, thank you. We can take that down. Judge, we can take up the additional matter if the court would like.
Well, why don't you proceed, and then we'll see if there's an objection.
All right, Judge, can I have one moment, please?
Yes?
I have no further questions, Judge. Thank you.
All right, do you have any cross-examination, Ms. Higgs?
Your Honor, I do not.
All right, and the jury does not appear to have any questions for this witness. May this witness be released from her subpoena?
She may be subject to recall depending on additional witnesses, Judge.
All right. Okay, you may be called again. Thank you. You can give those exhibits back to Mr. Edson. Thank you.
And Your Honor, before they call our next witness, I do think it's important to put on the record additional information to clarify the Rule 6.
We'll take a break right now.
Okay.
So, all right, members of the jury, let's go ahead and take our lunch break at this time. So we'll be on break for about an hour and a half. Let's have you back at 1:30. Please keep in mind all of my advisements during the lunch break. Thank you. The record should reflect that the jury has exited the courtroom. Everyone may be seated. All right, Ms. Higgs, the objection was with respect to the surveillance video, P-TR-532, and you made a Rule 16 objection, and then you said you were going to look at your report and based on the discussion we had, and I said if we get to a point where you should object, then make an objection. The people did not move the admission of P-TR-532. So do you want to, anything else that you want to say?
Yes, Your Honor, I would indicate that we have not received any information previously from the prosecution that that witness had anything to do with that particular video. In fact, she had indicated previously to the prosecution that the video footage did not go back that far and would not be able to testify about it. So even recognizing that the prosecution didn't move to admit that, I would move to strike any testimony that there was suggesting that there was video footage and to have the jury instructed in that regard. And I would also just like to maintain that record for appellate purposes should any other Rule 16 issues arise.
Well, I don't know if you can maintain something with respect to future events that may or may not arise, but with respect to this particular issue, your objection has been made and the issue has been clearly raised. Mr. Edson, any response with respect to the request to strike?
Judge, I incorporate my previous record from the bench, and I'll stand on that record.
I don't know if you made any record with respect to the surveillance tape. And if you did, I'm not sure I remember. I don't think you were that specific. So what's the response as to the surveillance tape? She's saying that there was no notice that this witness had any knowledge of the surveillance tape and would be testifying about it.
Yeah, I would need to review her reports as well to see if there was anything in there about that. There very well may not have been. I can tell the court that, again, as normal routine trial prep, she was shown a video that had already been in discovery for, quite frankly, many years at this point. Was able to authenticate that video by saying, that's the store, I recognize the store, it's the store that I was a sales manager of. There wasn't anything additional beyond that, Judge. And quite frankly, we have other witnesses that can authenticate the video as well. And again, Judge, there's no prejudice. The video was not shown to the jury. It wasn't introduced into evidence at all.
And you're intending to introduce the video through another witness?
I need to double check the reports. There's another individual from Gander Mountain who is from the corporate office that pulls all the surveillance video. They house it at one location off-site. It's housed both inside, but it's also sent out off-site to their corporate location. That is an individual who can authenticate videos as well.
All right, I'll defer ruling on that. That may make a difference. If another witness lays the foundation for the surveillance video and the surveillance video is admitted, then I don't know why it would make sense for me to give the jury an instruction to that the testimony from this last witness with respect to that video is stricken. I think in that case, it would render any concerns moot. But to the extent that the people are not able to lay that additional foundation through another witness and are not able to admit the video, then I will instruct the jury to disregard the testimony from the last witness with respect to that surveillance video.
Understood.
All right. Okay, let's take up the issue, Ms. Higgs, or the two issues, Ms. Higgs, that you indicated this morning you wanted to address. And before you do that, you had asked me, Ms. Nelson, I think, for a copy of the redaction instruction. Actually, it may have been Ms. Spengler, but we have a copy for each party. This is the generic version, but I would make it specific to Exhibit P-TR-1227 if we end up using it. And again, I will use it if the defense wants me to give it. I will not use it if the defense prefers that I not give it. And I'm not tied to the language in the proposed instruction that I'm giving you. I'm flexible if you want to make suggestions and would like me to change any part of it. Or if you would like me to give a different redactions instruction altogether. All right, Ms. Higgs.
Yes, Your Honor, normally I would make this this objection at the time that this video is introduced, but as the court has previously indicated, you welcome sort of raising larger issues like this ahead of time so the court can address it without causing undue delay to the jury. And so that's why I'm bringing it up at this point.
And I appreciate you doing that. Thank you.
I want to make clear from the outset the bases of my objection, and that includes the 5th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution, the due process clauses, as well as Article 2, Section 25 of the Colorado Constitution. It's also under Mr. Holmes' right to a fair trial, which is under the 6th Amendment of the United States Constitution, and Article 2, Section 16 of the Colorado Constitutions. And most importantly, well, they're all very important, but also his right to a fair and reliable sentencing hearing under the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution and Article 2, Section 20 of the Colorado Constitutions. I will also cite for the court Colorado Rules of Evidence 401 and 403. To explain that a little bit further, what the prosecution has indicated that their basis for admitting this video is that it would rebut for somehow Mr. Holmes' demeanor in the courtroom. The dilemma with that is the following. I think the prosecution, Mr. Brockler, even indicated in his opening that this is his demeanor really all of the time, and that's exhibited as well in his video statements to Dr. Reed. And all of the expert witnesses have sort of agreed that it's a very quiet, calm demeanor, especially in a public arena. So I don't think that the video actually goes directly to saying that, to rebutting anything, especially given the prosecution's own admissions with regard to Mr. Holmes' demeanor. And what it does is really kind of implicates this idea that he's somehow malingering in the courtroom. Every single expert has agreed that that is not an issue in this case. And so it has the potential of confusing the jury with regard to that particular issue. And it also has the potential of confusing the jury because it's about 11 minutes out of several hours of time that he was in the holding cell. And so we have no way of reproducing that other sort of action or demeanor or anything because that video was not retained or preserved by jail personnel, despite numerous defense requests to preserve all jail video with regard to Mr. Holmes. It's also prejudicial and potentially violative of the 8th Amendment and Article 2, Section 20 of the Colorado Constitution, because what it essentially is allowing the prosecution to introduce evidence with regard to future danger, and rebutting basically a mitigator that has not even been presented to the jury. As the court is well aware, that's a violation of People v. Dunlap, cited at 975 P. 2nd, 723, a Colorado a Colorado Supreme Court case from 1999. I would also specifically object to any testimony. If the court denies our objection, I think it is also specifically necessary to object to testimony with regard to the fact that this video was maintained by Chief Perea for officer safety, because again, what that is directly implicating future dangerousness, and that is a mitigator that has not been presented to this jury. Those are my objections to that video. Let me just check with Ms. Nelson that I've covered all my points.
For the record, what's the exhibit number?
If I can have a second. 1089.
All right, thank you.
Your Honor, in addition, the prosecution, Mr. Orman had mentioned, I believe it was Wednesday or Thursday of last week, that they would seek to introduce certain jail records. I will just object under 401 and 403 as well as hearsay. I think it would be appropriate for the prosecution to submit those records. They're not very lengthy at all to the court for the court's review.
All right, thank you. Mr. Orman.
Well, Your Honor, I think that counsel's assertion of our argument for the admissibility of this video is more limited in scope than I would argue. The video is relevant. It shows the defendant's actions in the jail in September when he is alone, and The court has seen the exhibit, so I don't know that I need to describe in detail what it shows. But to me, what it shows is someone who is the very antithesis of being disconnected from reality, the very antithesis of what someone would look at and think of someone who is so psychotic that they're incapable of distinguishing right from wrong. And it's not the date of the offense, but it's in a time within a few months thereafter. The defendant has shown the jury evidence from November, from a couple months later, showing the defendant in the jail, and is apparently asserting that is relevant because it shows something about the defendant's demeanor, behavior, and what they would describe as this psychotic break in November. Well, this is evidence showing what he actually looked like that the jury can see in the meantime. And it's evidence to me that shows how he is able to assess what is around him, how he is able to take what he has available to him and use it for whatever purpose he's using that for. To me, there's really nothing that can be more relevant as to his state of mind that would be something that the jury can see during this time period. It is not outweighed by any prejudicial impact. Additionally, Your Honor, I understand counsel's argument that this evidence could be considered evidence that would rebut an assertion of a statutory mitigator of a lack of continuing danger to society. And it may be relevant for that purpose if and when we get there. But the fact that it's also relevant for that purpose does not in any way diminish its relevance for the purposes of what we're here at this phase of the trial to present. And I can get into all of the different steps the defendant takes, but I don't think the court needs me to do that because I know the court has seen it. So
I have seen it.
So unless you have any questions for me on that, I can move on to 1088, which is the jail kites.
Before you do, what are you intending to introduce testimony that the video was kept for officer safety purposes?
I was not planning on introducing that specifically, but I could see objections made that as to a foundation which might require that testimony. However, I would agree not to present that unless I felt it was necessary after approaching the bench and discussing it with the court first.
Okay. All right. Why don't you address then the jail records? Is it all? Are they all jail kites?
Well, all but one, Your Honor. What they are, Your Honor, are jail kites, and kites, as Your Honor knows, is a term that I don't know where it originally came from, that's used in jails and other correctional facilities for notes by prisoners and inmates to jail staff asking for things. And that's what this is. It's a series of requests from the defendant to people in the jail starting on July 25th. Most of them regard what he would like to be given for reading material in the jail. There's also a question about funds, where the defendant is asking about funds, and that is August 4th. There are questions about contact lenses on August 5th. The only thing that is not a message from the defendant to the jail staff is a series of questions that go back and forth, so that the purpose of the responses is to put in context what the defendant is saying. Specifically, I would direct the court to the exchange dated August 27th through September 9th, and the messages and replies are all on one page of that one. There are also requests about meals and so forth. So I would ask to approach with what I've marked as 1088 so that Your Honor can have a chance to look at it before we attempt to admit it.
Yes. Thank you. All right, I'll take it under advisement. I'll review it during the lunch hour, and I'll think about the other issues that were raised just now over the lunch hour as well. When are you anticipating these issues being ripe in terms of when are they going to come up as it relates to witnesses testifying about them or these exhibits being offered into evidence?
It somewhat depends upon how other witnesses go and how long they take. I was thinking originally that it might be this afternoon, but we got a kind of a late start because of some issues that were beyond all of our control that came up. So I'm thinking it's probably not the case. I guess if we just whisk through people, it might be. So I don't think it would, though, be until late in the afternoon today or later this week.
Okay, sounds good. All right, the court will be in recess. Thank you. I'll see you after lunch.